Just add to that. I think the reality is, in the past there were a number of aggregators which we still want to work with in the future, but I truly believe that we'll end up with a more diversified delivery model, some of our own delivery, certainly more of our online presence and the ability to order through our online presence. That's just adding to Alejandra's point, really.
Mm-hmm. Okay, regarding even just to highlight it, in California, we heard that the government pressured the food delivery companies to waive their margins or their fees as well, just to utilize this. Do you think that before if you recall before, and also your experience from your historical experience, Ian, that before there is no food aggregators in the market, and when the restaurant want to deliver the food, they depend on their fleet and their drivers.
Sure.
And then after the food delivery companies show up, and the restaurant depend more on those fleet delivery. So do you think that nowadays this will rehappen again, and a restaurant will depend on themselves to hire their drivers?
I think what you have to say is, let's be honest, when the delivery aggregators came along, they just did a better job of it than we did, and we weren't digital experts. And I think this pandemic has done something. It's forced us to wake up and recognize that we have to have a partnership with the aggregators, but we have to have a control of our own destiny as well. And I think the reality is we have to be good at all parts of our business, whether it's with partners or in our own fleet, with our own ability to deliver to people. I think it's a blended option. Like I said before, I think we'll end up with just a simple, or a simply put, more diversified delivery option, which should actually grow the market better, faster, cleaner. And from my point of view, I mean, in fairness to the aggregators, they haven't been charging for delivery with us since this whole pandemic started. So at least they have been working quite hard on that with free delivery. The biggest problem we've had is actually physically getting permits to get deliveries made. I believe there's a latent underground desire, but at the moment it's still a bit disjointed, and we're working our way through that daily.
So regarding the let's say, let's see the good part of the pandemic, after pandemic. So what do you think, or how do you see the business look like after Corona, especially let's say maybe in terms of the payment sectors? Alejandro, I think he's aware of the payment, let's say, types in the restaurant. And before the restaurant, the cash payment is more than 60%, and nowadays everybody is forcing to have a digital payment. And even most of the food delivery companies, there is a message when you need to order, you have to order digitally, no cash is accepted. So do you think this will impact positively the business after the crisis?
Yeah, I think what's happening, this crisis is forcing a lot of people to try new things, right? I mean, digital adoption of anything. I buy something online, or pay online, or try food delivery, or any other digital services. It was constantly growing. I think with this, we're going to see a quantum leap. All of a sudden, if we were, I don't know, at 10-50% adoption, we might end up after this crisis at 25% adoption, right? So, and that goes, as I said, across. One of these things is the use of wallets, right? I mean, a bit related with the payment sector, and we're starting to see already people getting used to the use of credit cards, of contactless credit cards, and you have someone speaking before about it. I think it's, you can even see maybe down the road, even not even pulling your phone, and because the phone actually itself has a lot of viruses and a lot of things, right? Even face recognition to pay at the store, right? And I think Foodics has a solution for this, right? You have something for the schools. Yeah, we need to deal with some of the privacy issues, but I would definitely expect to see more, I don't know, use of STC Pay or Apple Pay or any of the contactless wallets, and also help actually in the process, because checking out a restaurant, handling cash is not hygiene. And number two, it takes longer, right? A payment with a mobile wallet, and it is faster checkout and faster processing, right? So just definitely, I will start to see, hopefully, also getting rid of the culture of cash on delivery, which is an unfortunate development of e-commerce in this part of the world. And I hope this might be a good time to fix that. This is really a friction in the e-commerce process.
And I really know that restaurant cash in restaurant operation is fraud ignite. So that's why I think Ian will be happy in operationally to have less cash in operationally during the operation, during all of the cashiers and the waiters and the laborers in the store.
I think we're going to see very quickly the end of cash being used in restaurants. I think Alejandro is exactly right. I think we're going to have contactless. We're going to have use of wallets. I certainly would be happier not to have cash in safes in restaurants overnight, because it will stop me getting caught up at 4 a.m. because of a burglary. So from my point of view, it's great all round. But I go back to what I said before. I think when people do come back to dine, because they will now, if only half of them come back, that's a different model. But what I would say is, if we can just create a solution that is either contactless wallets, or even one of these new technologies where you can physically order the food from your table, it goes straight to the kitchen, and you can pay your bill on your phone and go. I mean, that could be the future. What I would say is we're open to all options. And the one thing we're thinking about really hard is, what technology do we need when we reopen? Because we will reopen. It's just a matter of when. And how do we be ready? We have to be very, very ready to open.
Yeah. That's another opportunity. I mean, just to mention this, I expect to see a lot more digital menus, right? So menus is something else that a waiter gives to you at the table, and you now is going to start thinking how many other people have touched this, right? I think it's now they're going to come and there is maybe a QR code or something that says, okay, there is the menu of the table. You don't need for the waiter to come. So it's not just hygiene; it's again efficiency. I don't have to wait for the waiter to come and tell me the menu. I can just pull my phone and I'll get it pop up and order, right? So I think that will increase the efficiency again of the whole process.
Definitely. Regarding the fine dine restaurant, Alpha Group does have a couple of brands with fine dine restaurant. It is the most impacted, let's say, business types in the F&B sector. So what do you, how do you think that the consumer behavior would be after the crisis? Don't you think that the consumer behavior will be impacted, to stay in a home and cook in a home rather than going and eat and enjoy the experience? Or do you think that it is in a different way after the crisis?
I mean, first thing I'd say is, we're not particularly in fine dining. We're in upper casual dining. We have steakhouse and piatto, which are sort of family dining. But I think that's equally going to be affected, quite frankly. But I think we need to think longer term as well, because people don't go out for a meal before the crisis. They went out for a family experience. And if we can create a safe family experience for them, I'm sure people will come out still. But at the end of the day, we have to do everything to put people at peace. And if they want to eat at home, well, we'll provide meal kits for them to cook at home. If they want to have deliveries, we'll deliver. If they want to pick it up, when we're allowed to, they can come pick it up. But we are going to have a very different business model after this. We'll have slightly less restaurants, not that many. We'll certainly have less staff. We'll have more technology. And to Alejandro's point, we'll be more efficient. Less touch points in a restaurant means that you have a cleaner, faster, better experience. And you can spend time with your family as opposed to being bothered by people giving you menus and things all the time.
This is my second question, actually, regarding the technology. So now the crisis and the pandemic are showing a huge unemployment, especially in the retail sector. So how do you think that how you utilize the tech in the F&B industry, and the the videos that we keep showing it from China or from the United States, which is robots to come and serve you in the restaurant, and also a train to deliver the food to you. As a restaurant expert, we know that it's all about experience, all about customer engagement and serving and a good word and said. So how do you believe that really technology will replace this core fundamental, let's say, labors in the restaurant?
Look, I personally think, look, that the change is not going to be that radical that quick, right? I think this. I'm with Ian. I think people are going to come back to dine out, or to dine in brick and mortar restaurants. I think it's. I think human beings tend to forget the bad things rather quickly, right? So even the big crises, we tend to leave them behind. What I think is going to drag us down farther is the wallet, our pockets, right? I think what I'm more afraid right now is the economic consequences, more than the. I don't expect, if things hopefully, inshallah, work out, I don't expect in 2 years people being really paranoid about getting a virus. I don't think that's going to be there in 2 years. I think that maybe in 2 years we're going to see people really worry about how much is this meal costing me for a large family, right? And so there is going to be a drive for value. Now, that drive for value means that the restaurants need to focus on bringing that value to the clients, and that is looking at the menu, and is looking at what is the efficiency of the staff in delivering that menu. But I think before jumping into technology, and we've seen in Asia all these sort of robotic options, I think there is still a long way to improve efficiency of people in a restaurant by just being much better on how we organize ourselves and how we actually sort of put basic things in the restaurant. Just by jumping this, just think for a moment, if you skip the process of giving the menu first, waiting for someone to read it and come back and take an order, like it's just one trip to take the order, or you skip that sort of process entirely, and then to pay the bill. You don't even have to call the waiter to ask them for the bill and come and take the card and do payment somewhere else. I think that alone could increase the efficiency of the staff by 30-40%, right? So I think there are steps way before getting into technology. Ian, what do you think?
I agree. And I think the important thing about this virus is this is caught by touching something that somebody else has touched. If you touch a robot, it's just as liable to give you something as if you touch a human being. And we've been very successful in keeping our staff clean. We put a travel ban in the end of January before this even came to the kingdom. Not because we didn't want people to go home, we just didn't want anybody to bring anything from abroad to the kingdom. And in doing that, I also travel banned myself. So I haven't seen my family since December. So at the end of the day, I think there's always going to be a part to play for people in hospitality. Will robots one day put us out of all out of jobs? Possibly. I'd like to be retired at that point. But I don't think robots will ever replace the human touch at all, because I go back to the experience. You know, you go out to dine for a family experience or an experience with your partner, your wife, your children. And I just want to create the cleanest, safest possible environment for them to actually have that experience. So I think Alejandro's right. We will become much more efficient. We'll come out of this leaner, faster. But by the same token, I'm not sure robots coming to the table with your food is going to be a short-term solution, but who knows in the future? We'll consider everything.
Yeah. And so it's all about hygiene. So increasing the hygiene, increasing the quality of food, and also the consumer will really be aware more than before. So I think this is the next, let's say, move. Okay, regarding the everybody knows now people would like to cook at home, surrounding with their families, and we started to see that many of restaurants, they change in their menus and put some uncooked materials on their menus to supply it. Do you think that we will face more catering business rather than a casual dining or quick service restaurant after that?
I think, as I said before, we entered this with kind of one or two business models. We're going to exit with 6 or 7. We'll exit with a catering business, which we're just launching. We're going to exit with a delivery business, a pickup business. This cook at home thing we've done is 30 different meals with all the component parts and all the ingredients that are actually listed on the thing. And then you get a QR code and it shows you the video how to make it with your family. So these are things that we dreamt of doing. We just didn't have the time before. Now we don't have the choice. So I think, we're going to get it with a much more blended model. But are the people of this world going to eat less food? No. I think they'll just eat differently. And we have to cater to the needs of the future, whatever that might be.
Definitely. So back to the point of the cloud kitchen. Are you considering...
We're all cloud kitchens now.
Yeah.
We're all cloud kitchens now. We've reinvented ourselves. We're all cloud kitchens now. We've just become the biggest cloud kitchen business in the kingdom.
Yeah. Definitely. It is a huge potential. So don't you think that there is a huge potential now in the kingdom for the cloud kitchens? And do you think that the infrastructure of the food delivery companies and the restaurant, for example, restaurant recipes or the operations will be it's ready to start this business model in the kingdom?
I built the first cloud kitchen about 5 years ago in Kuwait, so I'm a big fan of cloud kitchens and what they can do for increased coverage and flexibility, etc. So I'm a big fan of them. But I go back to what I just said jokingly a minute ago. We actually all become cloud kitchens overnight. I mean, we have Steakhouse Piatto, Fire Grill, and City Fresh Kitchen, but we also have Steakhouse Burgers that comes out of Steakhouse. We have Uncle Mo's, our Southern barbecue brand. Suddenly, we've got 2 or 3 brands that are suddenly appearing now as cloud kitchen brands from our existing infrastructure. And I believe that will be a way that partly will sweat the assets we have, but we shouldn't rule out anything in the future. Cloud kitchens, every restaurant in the kingdom is one today, but I think we need to be more creative in how we use those kitchens, those equipments to actually give better offers, more flexible offers, faster to market offers. So, yeah.
What do you think people will trust the hygiene in the cloud kitchens nowadays? They know that when they visited any of the restaurant, they can see the kitchen, they can see how it's cooked and so on. Regarding the cloud kitchens and this pandemic and crisis and behavior, how maybe using technology to give a trust to the people, to the consumer to utilize the cloud kitchens?
I think, look, at the end of the day, nobody can come in our restaurants right now or cloud kitchens at all. I mean, I believe the cloud kitchen brands that do operate here actually are very hygienic. I've been to see them. But I think the reality is maybe there could be a future in the future when you do your order, you could actually watch it being made on a video or a link or something. I mean, I'm a burger flipper. I'm not a techno guy, but I'm suddenly trying to become one. But I think there's going to be so many ways now that we could actually film food being made. We can give people access to watch it being made. These are all the challenges we're going to have in the future. Whether it's a cloud kitchen or a restaurant, I'm beginning to not differentiate between the two now. Because, as I say, I think you'll find you'll have restaurants with 6 or 7 different brands coming out of them.
Yeah. I do believe, we tend to think of innovation about the digital part, the sort of the electrons and the sort of the order taking online and sort of the apps and all that, but there is also an innovation on the food itself, right? So, and I expect a lot of innovation on the packaging, a lot of innovation on how to make the meals much more travel friendly. So they are, when they arrive to the home, they are as fresh as in the restaurants. And so I expect that will give more confidence to people, like, okay, this meal it looks at the package, it's clean, it has protected it, it has some kind of tracing of where it has been, who has touched it, who has cooked it, who has delivered it, and that will be all on our hands, right? I also expect to back to this topic of how the cloud kitchens are going to transform the industry. I don't think the cloud kitchens model is finally kind of set in stone. I think there's still a few models within that space that are being set, and I think the future is really going to be competition about who delivers the fastest. Like and the fastest actually, even if you have the fastest drivers and sort of the best technology, at the end of the day, the really true differentiator of delivering faster is fragmentation of those kitchens. How many of these kitchens do you have spread out in a big city? And that actually is already in place. These are the restaurants that have already been built, right? So I think that they need to be complemented with some sort of smaller in between. But I think the future solution of cloud kitchens is actually through the established infrastructure, right? It's as Ian was saying, we're already cloud kitchens, and in the future will be. So I think that it's going to be a race who can deliver a meal in less than 10 minutes. That will be the one. And for that, you really cannot cook these meals in 4 cloud kitchens in a city, or even 20. I mean, you really literally need hundreds of different kitchens spread around the city.
Yeah.
Who's to say that my meals won't be cooked in other people's restaurants in the future? It's about location, and I think Alejandro is exactly right. We've got to think different models now. How can we make sure we get the food to you quick, fresh, and clean? I mean, not blowing our own trumpet at all, but we were the first people to temperature check every delivery driver weeks and weeks ago and seal all our delivery bags and actually put the temperature of the driver on a ticket on the bag to give confidence to people. These are all things that we thought were clever at the time, but they're just scratching the surface about what we need to do for the future.
I think, yes, that maybe the quality of the restaurant will be, what I mean that only the quality restaurant will be surviving and will be seen in the market. And as you know, everyone that small restaurants might close and will shut down permanently, and because of this crisis, and they cannot survive. And also the other question, do you think that after Corona or after this pandemic, we will only see this new branded restaurant in the streets and in the market, and we will the cafeterias and the low hygienes and quality restaurant will be closed and shut down?
It's not for me to say who will and will not open. I certainly won't be eating in the restaurants that I don't feel are clean and hygienic and everything else, because that's the new norm. What I would say is the most important thing we can all do is open correctly. And I don't know whether 50% of us will reopen, 40%, 70%, and it's not for me to judge that. But I do know the ones that do reopen have had to think very hard through this crisis. I mean, the one thing we haven't stopped doing throughout this crisis is marketing. It's very important, I believe, that we spend money on making sure that our brands are still in the forefront of people's minds, and that we're telling them what we're doing. We're doing Butcher Shop, we're doing this, and Ramadan. We're just about to enter the holy period of Ramadan, and we just launched like 70% more offers and products and things for Ramadan, because we think it's going to be a different Ramadan, but we don't know. But what I do know is whoever does reopen has to have a lot of guts to get through the coming weeks and months. They have to protect their cash, which we've done. We've cut back on absolutely everything that we can. And we've had great support from our landlords. We've had great support from our teams. But what I do know is you have to stay relevant and in front of people's minds for them to want to come back in whatever format, whether it be digital, whether it be delivery, whether it be pickup, whether it be dine in. We're determined to make sure we're still here. We come back and we come back stronger. As I said before, we want to make sure that when people come back after Eid or after Ramadan or even after Eid, maybe it's a month later, I don't know. What I do know is we'll continue to make sure that we're relevant and as fit as we can be, as our brands are, ready for when it's back.
Strategically, regarding now the restaurant impact and restaurant sales impacted more than 80-90%. what do you think that after the crisis or after the lockdown is back to normal life, do you think the impact of the sales will be normal as before, or it will remain impact? And if yes, what is the percentage of impacted sales would be?
I mean,
We're hoping you've got the answer to that.
yeah.
No, thanks.
Look, I don't think anyone knows. Honestly, it's very hard. We all every day, Ian, myself, everyone in our company, we wonder ourselves. You know, it's just pure guess. As Ian said at the beginning, we don't really know. I do think obviously we're going to be back to 100%. It's all about the time, right? I really think that you're going to see back the demand and grow, but it's all about how long is it going to take. In my point of view, at least for now, I would say, no, I'm going to say for now, from the moment that the things start to open up, at least a year, at the very minimum, probably a year and a half, when you start hitting again the 100%, like the pre-corona, right? Now, the thing is that, remember as well, there will be a shrinkage of restaurants, definitely. Some of restaurants, unfortunately, are not going to survive because they didn't have the cash reserves to survive, right? So I think the demand is then going to go to the surviving restaurants. So I think it's really the strongest are going to benefit from less competition, okay? And it's going to go.
Did we see any positions? Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Could I just add to that? I mean, this is the math we've all got to do in our minds. And I think Alejandro is right. It's going to take months or years to go back to 100%. If only 50% of restaurants reopen and 50% of people come back to dine, it could come back quicker. But we just don't know what the maths of all this is yet. We're just making lots of guesses. But we're planning for a slow start and a slow build. And, I think Alejandro's right. It could be a year, could be longer. But we're making sure our business is fit to come back, whatever the business level is.
Do you think we will see acquisitions or merging together? Maybe Alejandro, from a strategic point of view, in the restaurant industry, or we can because it's normal in the back in the US and here to merge, but here in the market it's not that common.
So look, I tell you, yes, there will be some weaker players that don't have the cash and they will need financing. But honestly, I don't think there would be a huge number of acquisitions. I think a big question here we're facing right now is it's not just a financial crisis. It's a crisis maybe of the model, and this model so far has depended on real estate a lot, right? So, I mean, if you acquire another player and you're going to take their leases and their own long-term obligations, and it's maybe not the best way to go about it. I think I guess I think it's what's going to happen is you're just gonna the game is to survive the longest and focus on customer behavior, or focus on the consumer to come back and feel safe and give them value. And some of the brands, it will not be a full acquisition. I think maybe you can transfer some of the brands and try to find ways to make it work with less infrastructure. But just buying another company by itself, no. I mean, unless it goes through a huge restructuring of closing branches.
Yeah. So do you think that there is a huge closing branches we will see after that?
I think the real estate is going to have to adjust to the business model. For example, I mean, before closing, I mean, the landlords, maybe we need to start thinking, instead of fixed rent, maybe we need to have thinking of a hybrid model of fixed, but also depends on the sales of the location, right? So, and also some of the restaurants had, restaurants until really recently were separated into family and single, right? And we still were going through the slow transitioning process of reducing the space that right now we can make it a lot more efficient. So I think if the landlords cooperate with the food and beverage players, we can avoid closure of restaurants. But there needs to be a change of the traditional relationship, right? I don't know, Ian, you negotiated a lot.
No, I agree 100%. Mia. I mean, from my point of view, you know, everything's up for grabs now. Everything's up for change. Everything's up for negotiation. Everything up for a new model. You know, the reality is some of our restaurants are going to end up too big. Maybe I've put more brands in there, or we sublet space. There could be a whole range of options open to us, but landlords need to think differently. We need to think differently. And again, we don't know what the model's going to be, but I tell you what, it won't be the same as it was before. And I think that's going to be the world over, not just in the kingdom.
Okay. Now, in the situation, let's give some advice to those small and medium businesses. We have the market is the retail market or the restaurant market are 90% of it is a small and medium businesses, and it's really the impact, as you mentioned, that only the cash cow or the strongest restaurant that they can survive after and during the crisis. What is your advice, let's say, and I will split the advice into two things about continuity. So how the small and medium businesses can continue, and what is the strategy? The other part of the question is strategically, what is the change of business model they should do? I don't know if Ian, you can start.
Let me start. I'll start, and then maybe Alejandro could go forward. I mean, restaurants have traditionally been cash cows, and people have taken cash out of businesses. They've lived off it, yeah? Every single person in my company's taken a significant pay cut for the next coming months, me included, all my directors, everybody that's in our company's taken a pay cut. You need to do the same. Cash is king. You need to talk to your suppliers and try and work with them. You need to talk to your landlords and say, I can't pay you for 3 months. You need to cut every cost you can, but don't stop cleaning the place. Don't stop hygiene. Remember to keep your guests in mind. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's not a time to be taking cash out of businesses. We all don't have any. We're all losing money every single day. And I spend 7 days a week counting how much money we're losing every single day. But it won't take much for us to get back when we reopen. But I would say is everybody has to watch every penny, treat your staff well. I mean, we have redeployed lots of staff to our sister companies, to supermarket companies, to make sure everyone's still being paid wherever physically possible. So we try to keep our staff clean, keep them focused, and keep talking to your teams. I do a video to my staff every single week, or certainly twice a week sometimes, and keep the engagement level of your teams high, because you can't reopen if you've got nobody to reopen, unless you're the cook, the bottle washer, and the dishwasher, and the server. So keep everybody engaged, talk to your suppliers. They're in the same position. This won't go on forever, but just stop taking cash out. We have. And, you know, I've got a very supportive group behind me, which I'm very fortunate to have that. And not everybody has that, but, you know, maybe somebody should set up a helpline for experienced executives to talk to people about ideas. I'd certainly be happy to be involved in that. But we're all in this together, and restaurants will reopen. Will they all reopen? No. But as many as possible, I'd like to think so.
Yeah.
Alejandro?
Small, medium. I think your question was about small and medium enterprises, the smaller restaurants, right? So those are that they don't have a group behind it, or they are not part of a international conglomerate, right? I think, look, it's going to be harder on them. I think they need to do all the things that Ian and I just mentioned, right? But they also look at, you know, the government is trying to support sectors. So I think they need to be quick and be aware of what government programs are there for loans for small and medium enterprises. That's one. They should find ways to really comply with the regulations. So, I mean, let's face it. I mean, the food and beverage business. I mean, the restaurant business has always been regulated. I mean, you cannot open a restaurant if you don't keep certain levels of hygiene standards, right? I think that's the theory, but implementation or compliance is not always equal, right? I think the small and medium enterprises really need to take this seriously, because I expect more regulation and more inspections about the whole sector, right? So higher standards and more checks. So I think the small and medium enterprises need to get ready for this. And then third, the technology. Thanks to companies like Foodics, for example, there is a lot of things that the whole cloud movement that started like about 10, 15 years ago is basically at the bottom of it, the essence of a cloud business is it brings technology at low cost to smaller businesses. Like 20 years ago, to set up a large e-commerce business, you would need to invest in servers, you would need to invest in software, you would need to put a big infrastructure, a technology infrastructure. Today, you can open an online business in a matter of hours where everything is integrated, right? I think a cloud-based platform like Foodics that sort of helps users to jump without capital investment. It's just a small operating cost, and brings the loyalty component, right? You need to think harder about loyalty of your customers. So to bring things that before were not there, like loyalty used to be a feature of chains or really well-known brands. Now loyalty can be accessible to any small restaurant chain, right, or small players, and maybe there is a space for all these guys to work together in a coalition way, right? So it's just throwing a few ideas about regulation, financing, use of technology that they should keep in top of mind on top of what Ian said just now.
Mm.
So regarding there is a most common questions regarding the capital came up before and during this pandemic to restaurant owners, that whether they can take loans or not to cover their running expenses. So what your answer to that? Should is it healthy? Let's say, is it healthy for the restaurant to, in order to survive, or to wait for the next, after the pandemic and the lockdown, to cover their running operations, to get loans?
Again, I don't want to be the person that advises people to take loans or don't take loans. But the reality is most people will probably have to try and take loans to get through this. It really depends whether you've got the heart, the wish, the want, the desire to start trading again. And that's each individual to their own. I can guarantee you one thing: when this business reopens, we'll still be here. But people have got to decide. It's tough times. It's no different than everybody taking a pay cut. That's taking a loan. That's a loan on your own personal income. And I'm doing that because I believe we'll be here in many years to come in a better shape with a more diverse business. And that's everybody's, in my company, is taking a loan on themselves by taking a reduced salary. It's voluntary. We haven't forced anyone to do it. Everyone's done it voluntary. So I guess, the reality is, I'm not here to advise whether they should or shouldn't, but the reality is most people are going to have to consider that at some point.
Look, I think, Ahmed, there is no universal answer to that. It's case by case, Manuel.
Exactly.
It depends. It's the amount of equity and debt that a company should take. It is very, very peculiar to the conditions of that business at that point in time. Now, two side comments. One, it's some of these loans are actually not the traditional loans. They are government supported. They don't mean the high interest rates. They actually allow for very comfortable payment terms after you've recovered. So they shouldn't look. Some of them are not I'm not just referring to the banks, I'm referring to these new programs that are being set up. They should be looked as very soft loans, right? Number two is what Ian says, look, it might be a situation of you don't have a choice, unfortunately. If you really believe in your future and your business, there's no other way to go about it. Right? You just need to take this, and it is not a lifestyle choice. It's really a live or die kind of choice, right?
Mm-hmm. And also, I have a question. I will regarding the monthly, let's say, monthly paid. So, as we know that the most capital in the OPEX is the salaries and the payrolls, and this what impacted the U.S. Economy. There was a lot of unemployed, especially from the restaurant and the retail. Why is that? Because they've been paid or in a daily basis or a weekly basis, which we don't have it in the law here in Saudi Arabia. So do you think that it is helpful for the restaurant, the sector, to have a monthly cut or a weekly cut and a daily payment deal with the laborers and the restaurant workers?
At the end of the day, everyone has their own model. I mean, we pay everybody monthly. The reason we all took a pay cut was so we could make the payroll. We could keep paying everybody. So we did that because everybody felt some of the pain, and everybody just joined in and said, great, let's do it, because everybody can see a future for us. But I don't think it makes a huge difference whether you pay people monthly. It does make a difference to cash flow because it's one payment, but most of our staff send their money home. Let's be honest, the Saudis don't. We have a huge amount of Saudis in our business, and we love that. But what I would say is a lot of our guys send their money home, so big paid monthly suits them, you know, if they can get out to send their money home at the moment. But yeah, so I mean, my personal view is I don't really have an opinion. I grew up in an industry where I got paid daily or weekly or monthly. I started life as a dishwasher, so you know I'm used to that model. But again, in the West, it's been virtually monthly now for many, many years. So I don't really have a view whether you should switch one way or the other. It's the same amount of money at the end of the day.
Yeah, Ahmed, I think
Alejandro?
The question is not so much about when people should get paid weekly, daily, or monthly. I think the key question that we need to start thinking harder is about full-time versus part-time, right? In the in the restaurant business around the world, okay, the staff cost is a very important element of the full cost to the client. So in other markets, not in the Middle East market, there is how you handle this is with part-time, right? So you don't you hire staff for the peak times, for the dining time or for the lunch, but you don't need to have a full-time for the breakfast if you don't offer a breakfast. So I think we need to start thinking about here, and especially with the potential issue of unemployment in Saudi Arabia, that maybe the part-time model needs to be rethink again, right? So, and actually to support more the local employment, right? So that is it could be a way to manage, and there are pros and cons of this, right? So yes, part-time can come with a little bit more insecurity, but also it's better not having a job at all, right? So I think we need to start thinking about it because it's a model that is applied in most of the developed world.
I agree 100%. And I think that model will lend itself to local Saudis more so than it will do to expats just because of the logistics. But I 100% agree that part-time working is going to become a huge part of our future, I think.
Yeah. I think we will take some questions from the audience, but I'm seeing that most of the question I already covered in the panel. But there is it's all about the future of the industry. There's one question, I guess, what is the future of the F&B industry in terms of sector? So what is the sector, not the sector, the business type or the concept of the food might be trending next after the pandemic? This question shows that maybe he's a potential restaurant owner. He wants to know where to invest after.
What type of food?
What type of food? Yeah.
As I say, that there are no more experts anymore, but I do think there's going to be a huge switch to cooking at home. I think that's the thing. That's why we've done our cook at home range. I do think people will crave things they loved before, maybe not as much. I personally think we're not going to see as many new pop-up restaurants. The last 2 or 3 years, we've seen so many innovative, local, created brands popping up left, right, and center. There's going to be a hiatus on that because there's going to be a time when everyone's licking their wounds and recovering, and then innovation will come again. I think the innovation in the short term won't beat new cuisines. I think the innovation in the short term will be exactly what Alejandro said, is we will have better technology. We will have more control over our own destiny. We'll have better connectivity with our guests, not just through third parties. And I think everyone's business will come out of this completely different. We'll still have restaurants, but they might be cloud kitchens. They might be delivery pickup points. They might be cook at home. There might be butcher shops. There might be online supermarkets. But what I do know is if you consider everything and try everything, and again, now's not a time to do 6 months research. Now is a time to do stuff.
Yeah.
And some of it will work and some of it won't. But every day you don't do stuff is the day you'll be a day further away from the reopening. Alejandro, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah. So like, look, if we use the framework of fast food or QSR, fast casual, casual dining, and fine dining. If you ask me, look, this is very personal point of view. I think the winners are going to be the fast casual. I think this is a good balance of quality at a sort of lower cost. And the other winner, I think, are those fine dinings that actually compress their margins and do deliver the same quality but at better prices. So I think they are, look, like in most crises, unfortunately, this is the world. In most crises, actually, the higher ends of society is still, tend to cruise through the crisis much better than sort of lower. So I think there's still going to be demand for the fine dining, especially if there's no oversupply in a specific country. But I expect these fine dining restaurants to deliver at better prices, the same quality, better prices. So again, fast casual and fine dining with a bit of more value.
So cheap or clean? Cheap meals or clean meals?
No, and quality. Look, quality. Food quality is it's gonna. You cannot. When you talk about food, you can never fool around with quality.
Yes.
And can I just add one? I've been in the restaurant business through all the financial crises. This is massively worse than that.
Okay.
But in all crises I've known in my food career, the first thing the money guys or the guy in the company's worried about money does is reduce the quality and try and make some money on food costs. If you do that, forget it, because people are discerning. I think Alejandro's absolutely right. People want quality at affordable prices. And we're all going to have to make sure we're ready for that, but don't cheapen the quality. If you cheapen the quality, people see it. They see your complacency so much quicker than you do.
So take from your margins to save the quality is much better than
even take from your portion sizes rather than reduce the quality. If you want to make it more affordable, some of our portion sizes are too big. Make it a smaller portion, make it a better price. Maybe that's the way forward, but it isn't taking quality out.
Yeah. So just to throw one idea here, innovation. I saw a business about. There's a waste problem in the food industry, right? There's still a lot of waste, unfortunately. And that's because the plates, maybe sometimes you only have one size, and sometimes you get an option of a small and large. But the other day I saw a business that I don't remember exactly the name, but where you get an electronic menu, and actually you get to choose the size of the portion. Like, I want 50 grams of meat, I want 100, I want 75, 125. And the price changes based on how much proteins I want, how many vegetables. So you get to play with a slider on how much, how hungry you are at that point in time, and how much you're willing to pay, and how much you think you'll eat, right? So there is innovation, there is digital innovation coming to you, and you're giving the choice to the consumer, instead of just, cookie cutter. There's only one size that fits all the stomach. It doesn't matter if you are a big guy or you're a small guy, the plate is the same. That doesn't make sense.